Good day, folks, and welcome to another edition of Lumberjack Logic. I'm your host, Neil Johnson, with some huge news out of the state of New Hampshire. There is a case out there right now that can completely affect the outcome of the 2024 election. There's actually two. So there's a gentleman out there by the name of Dan Richard. He has a massive case before the Supreme Court of the state of New Hampshire. I've already covered that in detail on other podcasts a little bit ago. We're still waiting for that decision. But in the meantime, he has filed a writ of mandamus that is going to be heard in the Superior Courthouse tomorrow. Tomorrow that will be heard. So I want to give you, for those who don't know, I'm going to read right from legaldictionary.com. The legal term writ of mandamus refers to an order by the court to a lesser government official to perform an act required by law, which he has refused or neglected to do. This type of court order is a remedy that may be sought if a governmental agency, public authority, or corporation in service of the government fails or refuses to do its public or statutory duty. To explore this concept, considering the following. Okay, now here's the thing. The other deal with this writ of mandamus, usually the courts don't like to do this because they like to allow the process to play out through the courts. But when you are in a situation where timing is of the essence, they can speed that process up with a writ of mandamus. Fortunately, Dan knows how to do this. He understands these rules out there. So what is the thing that's causing to speed this up? Well, that would be the election coming up between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And the Secretary of State of New Hampshire has not been doing his job. That's Dave Scanlon. So I was out there and interviewed him. The podcast got kind of goofy. My voice came through really weird, so I clipped it up. We're going to walk through that really quickly, though. Go check out mypillow.com/lumberjack. Right now, the mattresses, it's not only the 50% off, but Lumberjack Logic listeners get an additional $100 off the mattress. So if you need a new mattress, now is the time. Mike makes a combination mattress with both foam and spring. It's a phenomenal mattress. Go check that out. Other deals over there as well. mypillow.com/lumberjack. Here's some excerpts from the podcast.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on today. And I filed a writ of mandamus in the state superior court, and that court has jurisdiction to issue a court order to compel my state to perform its duties, its election law duties, and specifically the Secretary of State. We have a voter ID law on the books that has no exception, and we have a voter affidavit requirement that, again, doesn't have any exceptions. And so they're abusing that interpretation of the law. And so I filed a writ of mandamus to compel them to do their job. Simply do your job. If we have a law on the books, you've got to follow the law, and you can't make excuses. And that's what a writ of mandamus, specifically in this case, to correct an abuse of discretion. And that's what we have.
Now, interestingly enough, the legislature, Republicans in the legislature, are working against Dan Richard. So this is a uniparty problem. This is not just Democrat versus Republican. So they don't want to actually follow the law. They don't want to compel election officials to follow the law. And the law is actually very clear, as you're going to see in this next clip.
Faith. While waiting for a decision on our state Supreme Court case, they've gone ahead and passed legislation that doubles down on the fraud. So first of all, they shouldn't even be going there. Mason's Manual of Legislative Rules suggest to them, because it's not binding law, but it is a good guide for the legislature, that when there's a case pending in the state courts, you shouldn't be legislating because you look like a fool if you get it wrong. And that's what they're doing. That's why I brought the case, because we're waiting on an opinion from the state Supreme Court. Meanwhile, they're doubling down on the fraud and just gaslighting the citizens of the state.
So I just want to take a second just to kind of frame this. Tell me if I got this right. So the real issue, and this is pretty much contested all throughout the country and other states as well, is the affidavit. For people that are voting absentee, they have to prove they are who they say they are. And so by doing so, we have an affidavit statute. I'm reading it, and it says, it's RSA 65950B, the affidavit appears to be properly executed. So I want to just focus on that word affidavit. So if I go to affidavit, and I'm going to pull up Black's Law's dictionary.
It's an old word. It comes to us from the 15th century France. So it's not like it's not been its usage and custom is not well understood.
So I've always understood an affidavit to be something that I sign in the presence of an official who's
You're
authorized.
attesting to something.
I'm attesting
You're
to
swearing
something.
that something is true.
So if I just sign my name to a piece of paper and there's nobody else in the room
Witnessing that.
witnessing that signature,
Someone who is authorized to witness the
it wouldn't
signature.
be an affidavit. Am I correct?
Oh, absolutely. And that's really the name of the game. In 1979, they removed the notary certificate off the envelope, the return envelope. And at that time, it was an affidavit envelope. Well, when you remove the notary certificate and no one is checking the ID of the absentee voter, well, it's no longer a legal instrument because you're not attesting to anything being true.
So you can clearly see that the law is being broken, and the law is simply put in place to ensure that every legal vote counts. Because if you take and put an illegal vote in the system, somebody who can't be identified, somebody who won't even sign an affidavit, then what happens is that person can then cancel out and disenfranchise a legal voter. So I asked Dan, I said, well, what is the remedy? Okay, we just want to know, what is the remedy?
The remedy is the order from the court. The court will make a decision. Is the Secretary of State's interpretation of the law correct? In other words, is this an affidavit? Is this a legal instrument? And that's all we need him to do, is confirm what the law already says. And that's the simplicity of my case. There's a law that requires an ID. There's no excuse or exceptions. And there's an affidavit law. And there are no excuses or exceptions either.
This whole case rests on equal application of the law. It is so simple and beautiful. And listen to Dan explain this.
If none of this is followed through with, here's the problem for the court. If it doesn't issue the order, it's going to sanction the counting of illegal ballots, and it will leave every single ballot cast in the upcoming primary and the general election in question and all subject to challenge. That will cause chaos.
That's right.
That'll cause chaos.
Yeah.
The judge is going to have to say, oh, no, we don't have to have equal application of the law. And for those who say, well, we don't have to, it's a burden on those absentee voters to go have their ballot authenticated.
We haven't even had the election. They're already setting up the lawsuits.
Well, here's the thing. Why do I have to, right? The rest of us have to go through a legal voting process. Why are we going to give the absentee voter an exception and let him mark his ballot in his basement and never check his ID? Like I said, you're cheating.
So this hearing will be tomorrow. Hopefully we get a positive ruling that day because the New Hampshire primary is coming up. Again, go check out MyPillow, MyPillow.com, not only for the mattress, but the $25 extravaganza deals going on over there. MyPillow.com, utilizing promo code Lumberjack or /Lumberjack. You can also call them at 1-800-568-2865. See you on the next episode. Peace out.